Hey, in this video, Ducks Hockey and more, we're going to be talking about trade rumors again. That's my favorite thing to talk about this time of year. That March 3rd trade deadline is quickly coming. It's going to be here anytime, any day now. And we're going to be dissecting the Tarasenko trade. We're going to be looking at teams like Ottawa, Toronto, the Ducks, and Klingberg, Canucks, and Luke Shen, just to name a few. Stick around. All right, hey guys, thanks for watching Ducks Hockey and more. We're going to do some trade rumors, one of my favorite things to talk about this time of year, just because there is so much going on, not only on the rumor side of things, but just in general. A lot of buzz about certain players, certain teams, who's buyers, who's sellers, all kinds of crazy stuff. And it's really fun this time of year to basically just listen to it all, kind of take it all in and make my own decisions as far as where I think goes. So far, there's been two big trades, right? Bo Horvat was the first one. He was probably the biggest name out of all of them that we kind of had a feeling we're going to go somewhere. And he was the first one to go. So the second big trade and another big name that was projected to get moved, Vladimir Tarasenko. That trade happened a few days ago. The Blues and the New York Rangers pulled the trigger and made a big trade. Tarasenko of the Blues, who's no longer a Blue, is now a New York Ranger. Okay, he was sent to New York. Big deal, right? So I want to kind of dive into just that trade and dissect it a little bit, and then we'll move on to some other things. So obviously, Tarasenko was the big part of that trade, moving from St. Louis to the New York Rangers. Included in that, from the Blues to the Rangers, was a defenseman, Nico Mikola. Hopefully I said that right. He carries a $1.9 million cap hit, not huge, and he will be a UFA at the end of this year. So my guess is that he'll either get re-upped by New York if they like him, or they'll just let him go. Or, well, actually they'll probably re-up him. I mean, if they felt that good about him, they're either going to keep him around or they might actually just let him go and he'll walk. I mean, who knows? We'll see. But those were the two players from St. Louis. From the St. Louis Blues that went to the New York Rangers. Now, the New York Rangers in return gave St. Louis, in my opinion, New York won this trade overall. What St. Louis ultimately got out of it was a couple of depth players that'll probably be AHL guys. They have been most of their career. I'll talk about them in a second, but some depth for their team as far as the AHL is concerned, players that they can bring up if injuries become an issue, and those players, if they're playing well, can step in that role with the big club. But more importantly, the St. Louis Blues got a conditional first-round pick from New York as well. So there's your win for St. Louis. They got a first-rounder. So that's really what you, from a St. Louis perspective, that's the bright side of this trade is you no longer have that big cap hit of Tarasenko. Moving forward, it doesn't look like the St. Louis is going to have to make some changes, and they've got a first round pick coming. Either it's conditional, and I could give you the details, but it really doesn't matter. It's either going to be this year or the next. More than likely, it's going to be this year's first rounder, but they got a first round pick out of it. So. But I think, like I said before, that the New York Rangers really got the best side of this because they gave up a couple of AHL guys, a couple of young guys that really haven't done a whole heck of a lot yet. Yes, they gave up a conditional first-round pick, but look what they got in return, a defenseman, but more importantly, Vladimir Tarasenko. Now think about it, guys. Tarasenko, top six forward, New York Rangers, one of the teams that I predicted at the beginning of the year to be one of the teams to beat in the East. So, and I feel that way still. The only team that kind of snuck in there in the East that wasn't in my predictions is the New Jersey Devils. I don't think anybody expected the Devils to be as good as they are. But I think going into it, we all knew that, and Boston you could probably throw in there too. We knew Boston would be good, but not this good. So I had a feeling that the Cup in the East was going to be Carolina and New York Rangers. Those are your top teams. Well, it turned out it's now Boston and Carolina that you're top teams, and then you've got New Jersey and New York Rangers hanging around too. So I think for the Rangers, this is big. They're saying, hey, look, we know we're going to get into the playoffs, and that's what we're going to attempt to do. And then once we get there, we need some more scoring punch. We need something to help us, right? Tarasenko is what they decided to go with. So let's see if he can do it. I mean, I can see Tarasenko. He's a guy. I think he's 31 now. So he's in his early 30s. He's got a few years left, but he can snipe, guys. He's had some injury issues as of late, but right now he's healthy, and if he starts gelling well with the Rangers players, specifically like an Artemi Panarin, can you imagine? Panarin's a setup guy, big time, setting up Tarasenko for that one timer, and that it's going to be, if he can gel quickly and really get going with this team, the Rangers, Tarasenko is going to be a huge asset to them and give them an extra push for sure. So St. Louis actually, just so you guys know, retained 50% of Tarasenko's salary to make all this work and pull this off. They have to retain 50% of his salary. So what the Blues got, I'll touch on it really quickly because they're not like crazy, but Hunter Skinner, he's a defenseman, okay? He's a 4th round pick, 112th overall of the 2019 draft. They also got Sammy, and hopefully I say this right, Blyce. That's how I'm going to pronounce it. I kill names. People that know me and watch this channel, they know I kill names. But that Sammy Blyce, he's a left winger. He was actually a 2014 6th round pick of St. Louis. So he was picked by St. Louis in the 6th round, okay, back in 2014, and now he's back. He's back with the St. Louis Blues. So he was, it became part of the Rangers. I think it was in a trade to the Rangers at one point. Played a couple seasons there, not necessarily with the team itself, but in there, at the AHL level, minor leagues, that kind of thing. But now he has been traded back to the St. Louis Blues. So he's come back. So there you go. Again, like I said, I feel like New York won this trade, if you have to look at it in that way. I really do. So we'll see what happens. But some interesting stuff on the side note of that trade. There's been a lot of talk about, and I've talked about it too, about Patrick Kane and how New York and Kane was a very likely destination for him to go if he was going to go anywhere. Now, keep in mind, Patrick Kane of the Chicago Blackhawks, he has full control of where he goes. He has a no movement clause. So if somebody says, oh, hey, so-and-so wants to take you on, let's say it was Columbus or something dumb. This is an example. He can say, heck no, I'm not going there. He has control of where he goes. So New York, though, okay, is where one of the teams that this is what I read, and he actually, in an interview, was a little upset about the Tarasenko trade in New York because he wanted to go to New York Rangers. If anybody came looking, that was the team he was going to go to. And so the reaction from Patrick Kane when he was asked about this trade was he was a little disappointed. And it's interesting because, obviously that was a team that he wanted to go to. He was willing to waive his no trade clause, no movement clause to go there. And so interesting stuff, right? Patrick Kane actually, and that was what the speculation, the team that I had picked for Kane to go to was the Rangers. I really felt like it would have been a good fit for him. Not to mention, it just made sense. And New York, they're the type of team that would go after Patrick Kane anyway. They still went after a big name player in Tarasenko, but interesting that Kane really wanted to go to New York. He was willing to waive his no trade clause to go there. And I guess on the New York side, I think they were a little bit more concerned about Patrick Kane's hip and how it's an injury that they just didn't want to have to deal with, I guess. Something along those lines. Doesn't matter, it's over now. And with this Tarasenko trade, New York's not going to have any room to add Kane in any way, shape, or form. So that's just off the book. So now it'll be interesting to see if Patrick Kane actually does get moved, or if nobody comes knocking, he might end up having to stay with Chicago. So who knows? But interesting stuff. Moving on. Okay, that was the big trade of the week. I wanted to touch on that to get this thing rolling. Let's talk about some more rumors and stuff that's going around Detroit. The Detroit Red Wings are kind of pondering with the Tyler Bertuzzi issue, and as far as what are they going to do with him? Are they going to hold on to him? He had a really good year last year. I think he put up like 30 goals, but he had a great year last year. He's not doing so hot this year, but is Stevie Y going to just pull the trigger and let him go? Or does he say, no, I want to hold on to this cat and see what he can do, because he's already proven that he can put up good numbers. What do I do type of thing? So they're still pondering what they want to do, because I know there's a lot of teams knocking on Detroit's door, on Yzerman's door, saying, hey, what's up with Bertuzzi? So I think really what it would come down to for Yzerman is going to be, if a pretty good deal is offered for a Bertuzzi, he's probably just going to say, screw it, undo it, right? But if it's not good enough in his eyes, he's going to hold on to him. So there you go. But having an off year, Bertuzzi isn't giving himself much value. So Stevie Y might end up just kind of holding on to him, but to a shorter term, maybe not too much money, just to say, hey, look, you didn't have a great year, you're not worth this. So we'll see what happens. But the Canucks and Luke Schenn. So Luke Schenn reportedly, he's been in the trade rumor, mill, if you will, and a lot of teams interested in a Luke Schenn, and I can see why. But he has expressed that he likes Vancouver and would like to stay and sign a longer-term contract and stick around for a little while. It's also been reported that Rick Tocchet has made it very clear that he likes Luke Schenn, and he's a type of defenseman that he wants on his team, and so he doesn't want to see him go. He wants to keep him around. So it'll be interesting to see, because Luke Schenn's name was thrown out there as a possible player that's going to get moved as Vancouver try to retool themselves and change things up. So now, who knows? Maybe Luke Schenn stays with Vancouver for a few more years. So we'll see what happens there. But apparently Schenn wants to stick around, and Rick Tocchet likes him and wants to keep him around. So that, to me, says a lot. If your coach wants to keep a player around as a GM, I'm like, okay, absolutely. Let's keep him around. He's the coach, right? You have to have that kind of confidence in your coach. So as a GM, I think that's the right thing to do. So I have a feeling Luke Schenn won't get moved. But keep in mind, this is Vancouver, and Vancouver has been self-sabotaging and downward spiraling and looking like morons, really, when it comes to management and running this team lately. They'll probably move him and continue to look like that, but we'll see. Moving on to Ottawa. Ottawa right now, most people would say, well, Ottawa's going to be a seller. So what I've been reading is that Ottawa may just stay idle, okay, at the trade deadline. They won't go out and they're not going to move any of their prospects and their pieces, or sell them off to try to get picks or younger prospects or anything like that. They're reportedly going to kind of stay idle and not do anything crazy before the trade deadline. If they do anything, it'll be minor. But that's the word out of Ottawa. With their record and not going to the playoffs, naturally you think, well, they're just going to sell. But it looks like they're going to stick with what they've got. Okay, that's what I'm reading. So moving on from there, Pittsburgh. Okay, Pittsburgh definitely needs a third center. Okay, they're okay at the number 1 and number 2, but they need a third line center. Jeff Carter, in my opinion, he's just not cutting anymore. He's good in the face-off circle, which counts is very important. I'm not taking any discredit for that. That's an important stat and a skill to have as a center is being good in the face-off circle. But his numbers have declined big time elsewhere in his game. So is Jeff Carter really value-wise worth keeping around, or should Pittsburgh move him and maybe pull in somebody else? In my opinion, that's the best thing to do for them. I think they're weak on their third line center. They need more depth, and they need solid goaltending too. Jari, however you say it, he can be really good at times, and then he has some injury issues, and he can be kind of inconsistent. So can that goalie tandem carry them anywhere in the playoffs? It looks like Pittsburgh's probably going to get into the playoffs, but how far are they going to be able to go with what they have in net? That's yet to be seen, and I don't feel very confident with what they do have, because he's going to have to stand on his head. He just hasn't shown that that's what he's capable of doing right now. Some injury issues and this and that. So goaltending might be something they go out and pull a trigger on and solidify that going into the playoffs. But third line center for sure, I think they need to do something there. They need to find somebody for that. And Adam Henrique, okay, of the Anaheim Ducks, okay, would be a good addition as a third line center. That would make a lot of sense. Moving on from Pittsburgh, we're going to go into Toronto, the Maple Leafs. Okay, their GM Dubas, he might be looking to add up front, okay, and maybe on the D side in the blue line, but he's not worried about his goaltending. He actually, what I'm reading is that he's pretty satisfied with what's going on the blue line. Matt Murray and that goalie tandem of Murray and I think Samsonov. So he's happy with what he sees there. He doesn't want to mix that up too much. There were a lot of questions going in goaltending wise for Toronto, that being a weak point for them. But apparently he feels pretty good about it right now, and so he's looking to add depth to the forwards and maybe on the blue line. Even though they're defensively, Giordano has stepped up quite a bit, and their depth defensemen, just overall, they've been playing good defense. So it's not like they have holes to fill or they just haven't, they suck, like the Ducks, okay? But he might do it. If the trade is right, if the player's right, he feels good about it, he might do it. So Maple Leafs right now, maybe a top six forward, or maybe adding somebody on the blue line to add depth to that team as they go into the playoffs. You got to have the depth. Here's why, guys. Okay, just a real quick side note. Depth, playoffs is huge. If you don't have, let's say one of your defensemen goes down, okay, it's playoffs. You got to have that depth. Somebody sitting back there ready to step into that role for that injured player, fill the void, and do well. Now, he may not be as good, but he's got to be pretty darn good, okay, and play well, okay? Because if you don't have that and you start losing players, because the playoffs are rough, man. Players are going to go down to injuries. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. You got to have the depth so you have players that fill that void and continue that run, right? So that's probably what he's looking at. He's looking at, I need to add some depth to this team, blue line, forwards. So that's what he's thinking. The names that I keep thinking of for Toronto is Ryan O'Reilly in St. Louis, because I feel like they're going to move him. But there is talk now that St. Louis might try to hold on to O'Reilly, but O'Reilly would make sense in Toronto. And maybe like a Klingberg, John Klingberg in Anaheim going to Toronto to help their blue line, to help maybe, the offensive side of their blue line, experience, depth, that kind of thing. So we'll see. There's a lot of people out there. These are just what I'm thinking, but there's a lot of things, a lot of names that are still haven't moved yet. There's only been two big major moves, and we're getting closer and closer, so it's going to really start picking up. But that's the word out of Toronto. And then last but not least, Timo Meier. Timo Meier is another big name on the rumor mill, okay, and more than likely will get moved. Here are the teams that I've heard and read that are interested. The three big players on Timo Meier. Now, keep in mind, Tarasenko went to New York, didn't see that coming. Bo Horvat went to New York Islanders, didn't see that coming, so who knows. But Timo Meier right now, the Leafs, the Winnipeg Jets, and the New Jersey Devils. Three big names, three playoff-bound teams interested in adding Timo Meier. That's huge. Here's the other thing I read is that the New Jersey Devils want last say in what happens with Timo Meier. So they basically reached out to San Jose and says, before you do anything with that guy, talk to us before you make that move. Because they want the last say. If San Jose says, hey, so-and-so, this team wants to give me this and this for Timo Meier, what do there you go. What can you do? And so New Jersey wants the last say. So if they feel like they're willing to give up something, then it's better than what the other team offered, Meier will go to New Jersey ultimately. But interesting, right? I mean, it's kind of crazy to think that there's teams going, hey, I want last say, so call me before you say yes to anybody's offer. But that's how much they like him. And, quite honestly, I can see why. He's a good player, and he will sign probably long-term wherever he ends up going, and solidify that team's future by, being a consistent part of their team. And I wish the Ducks could do that right now, But right now they're in a position where they're growing from within through prospects and draft picks and that kind of thing. And then the Ducks and Verbeek will end up doing something crazy and adding some pieces, kind of like they did in the offseason last year with Strome and Vetrano. But long story short, Meyer is an interesting piece. And I think, if anything, now that Horvat and Tarasenko are out of the picture, you've got Ryan O'Reilly, you've got Timo Meyer, and I think probably John Klingberg, maybe even you could probably throw some other ones in there too. But those are some of your bigger names that are going to end up getting moved. Okay, and now that those two are out of the way, but either way, it's going to be exciting because, like I said, March 3rd is the trade deadline, and that is coming very fast. We're only like about 3 weeks away from that. So, hey, I'm done with this video talking rumors. I will get back on it every week. I've got one coming out because all kinds of new stuff comes out and new rumors and things like that. So I appreciate you guys hanging around and listening to me rant about trade rumors. I love trade rumors, and I love talking about it. Comment below. Tell me what you think. If you agree, disagree, tell me what you think. I love getting your guys' comments. Don't forget to subscribe. Smash that like button. I want to blow this channel up, so help me do it, okay? Hey, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.